I'm Douglas Murray, and this is Direct Address. This week I wanted to address the question which the whole world seems to be talking about, which is President Trump's decision to change up, I think we can happily say, the paradigm in the Middle East, particularly as it relates to Gaza. Until the last few days, most people didn't have much of an idea of what to do about Gaza post-war, other than to get everyone to rebuild it so that the Palestinians of Gaza could do the same thing all over again. And actually, Donald Trump's suggestion that the people of Gaza should be moved elsewhere seems to me, at any rate, to be a perfectly reasonable attempt to come to a decent solution to this problem, both for the Israelis and indeed for the Palestinians. There's only one reason why the Palestinians haven't had a state, and that's because their leadership keeps on refusing to have one. That was the case in 1936. It was the case in 1948 when they were offered a state right beside the Jewish state, and they decided, no, it's too important to us to annihilate the Jewish state, and we'd rather do that than have a state of our own. It happened again in 2000 when Yasser Arafat walked away from Camp David, and it happened again in 2008 when the same deal, bewilderingly enough, was put back on the table. A lot of people don't seem to realize that everybody who has actually worked away at this problem, the problem of the Palestinian state issue, they all basically have realized for a long time now that the paradigm they've been working in is completely defunct. It doesn't work. Nobody can make it work. John Kerry ran around the world on private jets and he still weirdly couldn't make it work, and it's because it doesn't work. It can't work. And what Donald Trump has done this week is to say, let's try something new. And if anyone thinks that that's surprising, let me quote one of Trump's predecessors, President Clinton, who just 2 months ago in an interview talked about the time he tried to give the Palestinians another state and agree to another state for the Palestinians, and they walked away. This is what Bill Clinton said in December. He said, Yasser Arafat, the head of the PLO, walked away from a Palestinian state with a capital in East Jerusalem and 96% of the West Bank. And here's what Clinton went on to say. If you turn down and walk away from a once-in-a-lifetime peace offer, you can't complain 25 years later when the doors aren't still open and all the possibilities aren't still there. Yet the complaints from the Palestinians have been listened to by the international community for a very long time. In 2005, Israel withdrew every single remaining Jew from the Gaza Strip and handed it over to the Palestinians. Effectively, it was yet another Palestinian state. And the Palestinians of Gaza could have done an awful lot of things with that beautiful bit of territory, with that amazing strip of land. But they decided to vote in a terrorist group, Hamas. And Hamas and Islamic Jihad and other charming jihadist groups decided to spend their time and our money waging war on Israel. And they did that pretty much from the time that the Israelis withdrew. They started firing rockets into their neighbors from the very moment that Israel withdrew, and they started war after war. There have been wars from Gaza in 2008, 2012, 2014, 2021, and of course then on October 7th, 2023, Hamas led an invasion, an attempted annihilationist invasion of the state of Israel. And all these months later, there is something that should be said with some clarity, which is, you lost. You lost. Hamas, you lost. Gazans, you lost. You voted in a terrorist group, and you seem, as far as we can tell, to approve of the motives of that terrorist group and its ambitions. If there are any moderate Gazans out there, this would be a great time to speak up. But from the video footage we see and from the testimony of hostages, not least female hostages who've returned from Gaza back to Israel in the last year, seems that the population of Gaza is quite as radicalized as the people who rule them. So it's not obvious that after starting this war and losing it, the people of Gaza should simply get yet more international funding to do the same thing all over again. That was, until this week, about the only plan on the table. That American taxpayers, European taxpayers, British taxpayers, Irish taxpayers, of course, everyone around the region in the Middle East should pour money into Gaza to give the Gazans another opportunity to make sure they steal money, like all the leadership of Hamas did, who all became billionaires, of course, continue working with their underground tunnel networks, and then launch at some point in the coming years yet another war on Israel. That was about the only plan on the table until this week. And Trump has now completely opened this question up. He's completely changed the political landscape on this by saying that actually the Gaza is not livable. I've seen that with my own eyes. Thanks to the house-to-house fighting, it's basically a wreck, and the population who are from there would do much better to be encouraged to move elsewhere, as President Trump said. There are lots of countries that have expressed enormous support for the Palestinians of Gaza, and I see no reason why they shouldn't be encouraged to take them in. Pakistan, I'm sure, could do with the highly radicalized population of Gaza going their way. The government of Ireland, that's been so vituperative about the Israelis in this war and has said that they are the greatest friends of the Palestinians, they, I'm sure, could do with a large influx of Gazans to Ireland. I'm sure all the other countries that have been grandstanding could do the same, but there are two countries that I think are particularly worth noting in this regard. And they're both the countries, by the way, which Donald Trump has singled out this week for taking in Gazans. The first is Egypt. Egypt used to run the Gaza Strip. I've never understood why, if the Egyptians and others of the so-called Muslim brothers and sisters of the Palestinians are so worried about their plight, and I've never believed they are. I've said that repeatedly. They don't care about the Palestinians at all. They just hate the Jews. But if they really do care about their Palestinian brothers and sisters, I never understood why the Egyptian government built such a big wall to try to keep them out. Now would be a great time to show solidarity, General Sisi. And I hope very much that all of that lovely land you have in the south of Egypt could be handed over in a decent peace settlement to some of the citizens of Gaza to live more peaceably than they've been living in the Gaza Strip. And the second country, of course, that Donald Trump singled out was Jordan. This is a very interesting one because Jordan is effectively a Palestinian state as well. Most of its population are Palestinians, and the leadership of Jordan has been incredibly vociferous in recent years about the terrible, as they see it, treatment of the Israelis in returning fire against the Gazan jihadists when they wage war on Israel. The Jordanian authorities have been extremely noisy in their condemnations of Israel. They seem to think that Israel should just sit back and take rocket fire for more than a decade, and all of October the 7th and everything else. Queen Rania, one of my favorite people in this war, has repeatedly taken to the airwaves to condemn the Israelis and their treatment of the Gazans. Of course, she doesn't have much of a brain. The only thing we can really learn from Queen Rania is how to marry a king. But if she did have a brain, she could have some time ago asked her father-in-law what he did with the Palestinians when they got on his nerves in the 1970s. And she'd have learned that her father-in-law's response, Black September, was to massacre tens of thousands of Palestinians who disagreed with him. So now is a great time for Jordan to step up. If Queen Rania and the other leaders like Erdogan in the region who have been berating Israel for the crime of self-defense, if they really care about the Gazans, now is the time to step up. Ask them into your countries, do the right thing. The world should be watching.